Question, por favor.
Next question is something Ben sent.
Oh, no, this is just a fan emailed me, and I was just
Oh.
like, I'm not going to read this. I'm just going to send it to Justin.
so you haven't seen it.
Justin, it's your call.
Okay, it's a really good question.
Yeah, I just was going, Justin, add this to the question queue.
Cool.
If you like it.
I don't want to be the filter for this.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I don't know if the guy wants to be named, so I'll just say anonymous.
Okay. Yeah, this was just an email I got.
Yep. So he says, I'm 30 years old. I'm 30 years old, but do not feel like a mature adult. Despite having been an infantry marine, traveling the world, earning a prestigious degree, and now working a cushy consulting job, I feel as though my mind and tastes are childish, and I'm not fit for what our society demands of an adult. I do a lot of things that would be considered immature, like host Dungeons and Dragons, play video games, mosh at heavy metal concerts, and make fart jokes.
This guy sounds awesome.
Yeah, like, is this a humble brag? What are you
This guy
saying?
sounds awesome. I was in the infantry. I have a prestigious job. I went to a great college. I love Dungeons
Here's
and
the problem.
Dragons.
I'm really
I love video
tall,
games.
handsome, and I like fun things.
If you're ever in LA, dude, let's grab a coffee or something.
Go ahead.
I have begun to resent the adultness of people at work who are around my age or sometimes even younger. Their conversations about housing markets, 401ks, business mergers, etc. bore the living hell out of me. I'd rather talk about machine wars of the future, which superheroes would win in a brawl. I want to quit my job because I don't feel like I have the correct maturity level for it, and it causes some anxiety. Do I need to suck it up and make a conscious effort to change my behavior and become more mature? If so, what does a properly matured 30-year-old man look like?
Dude, there's so many questions in this question. It's crazy.
I'm going to take it at face value, but honestly, this is no, of course not. It sounds like people all want to retain that childlike zest for life.
But he was in the military. I think at some point
Maybe.
it was beaten into him
Sure.
that it's important to fit in and conform. Let's shave your head so you're indistinguishable.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is a facetious question. I think
Okay.
it's a real one. I have a lot of thoughts. One, mature is often a word used to control people. I would never strive to be mature or immature. So that's my first thought on that. The fact that you're resenting people is also interesting, though, because I think there should be a way for you to be immature, quote unquote, or for you to like Dungeons and Dragons without resenting people who like the housing market. So something is occurring there.
Well, I mean, I think I can shed light, which is the resent comes from. I think if you were to look, it's the part of yourself that is telling you that you ought to
Exactly.
be like that. Like when you are completely comfortable with having the eye color that you have, and you see that everybody else has a different eye color, there's probably not a part of you that resents that. You just go, it's different, and I'm not supposed to be like that. Resent surges when your own judgment says, this is holding a mirror up to what I ought to be.
Yep.
And therefore I resent it in them, when really the person that you need to deal with it is that you think you ought to be that, and you oughtn't.
Yeah.
Right? You oughtn't be like that. But go ahead.
No. So I guess it's hard to try to answer them all at once. But one, your life is awesome. You should be very proud of it. You've done a lot of things that are great. Your interests, I don't think, make you mature or immature. Like, you support yourself financially. That's great. That's mature. You know what I mean? That's something I would say is good. You like board games. That's not a downside. I don't think that's a negative. It doesn't reflect poorly on your character. So to the extent that you can... The number one thing I would try to do is stop labeling yourself as immature for liking certain things.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I would try to do is stop labeling other people as negative for not liking those things. And then the third thing, which has nothing to do with any of that, is should you leave your job or not, which is based solely around if you enjoy what you do. But if you are a piano repairman and you love repairing pianos, but you're thinking of quitting because you're less mature than your coworkers, I would pause that. If you're an accountant and you hate accounting because you love Dungeons and Dragons, and what you really want to do is be a comic book illustrator and draw similar things, then you should quit your job, because you are not made to be an accountant. Is this making sense?
I think so. I
So
mean,
it's like they're like three questions within a question, which is, are your hobbies good or bad? Are these people worth resenting? And then what should you do about your job? And I think they're all almost completely, well, the third one's completely unrelated from the first two.
yeah. I had some similar experience to this, and I don't know if it was exactly the same, but I definitely remember going into work and despising the conversations that were happening around me, just feeling like I was in the wrong place because these people cared so much about the spreadsheet that had just come in and getting ahead at work, and I didn't. So what I did was not pretend, which I actually think was important.
Yeah.
And it was important. I'll tell you some of the results of this. One, I became the guy in the office that was like, oh, that's Charlie. Like, walked into a meeting with a faux hawk. Like, probably shouldn't take him to any more meetings.
Classic Charlie.
Please get shoes that have soles, Charlie. Like, and it was there were some times when I was reprimanded for it, but never terribly.
Yeah.
But it was like Charlie's that young 23, 4-year-old guy who doesn't care. And in my performance review, they told me, you're doing very good, but we just get the sense that you don't care.
Yeah.
And I just sat there and I went,
yeah.
that's interesting.
Well, we had a guy, Cyrus, who was the same way. Was this oddball character when I was at Blackstone, and he loved Dune, which I'd say put it on par with Dungeons and Dragons for nerdiness. But he was not shy about it. He didn't golf. He didn't love sports. He didn't pretend that he did, even though most of the office did. He loved Dune and would talk about it. And he found the other people in the office that also liked Dune, and they connected on it. And even the people who didn't like it, like me, respected how unashamed he was of liking this book. And he became a character as well, but he was respected for how comfortable he was as himself.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
And so even if people weren't going to connect with him on his fantasy book, there was a sense of Cyrus is not here to pretend he likes basketball, even though myself and Ted are constantly talking about it. He'll hang with us because he likes us, but he's here to talk about Dune.
He's here.
And that's honestly, people liked him a lot more than if he had tried to fake something else.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
And this isn't, obviously, it's not binary. It's not one or the other. But I experienced a couple of things that are similar to what you described, Cyrus. One, there were people that I just really didn't have much in common with. We could still be friendly, polite. I could talk, small talk about their weekend, etc., and be kind. But we didn't go deep, and it was known that we just valued different things. Mm-hmm. But what do you know? And I never would have guessed. The person that I connected with the most with my 24-year-old just wants to go out and party was the president of the company. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why, but I think that was how he lived his 20s and some of his 30s. And then he had recently settled down.
Oh, also, they think you're amusing. I had this at Hellman and Friedman. I was doing cage fighting.
Yeah.
No one thought that was a good idea. No one else did it. So I didn't connect with anyone on that level. But my boss's boss's boss thought it was hilarious that I would leave work to do it. And so he'd always ask me about it. Mm-hmm. And if I had just tried to talk about golf, which I don't play, and hidden the MMA, which some people did look down on and think was stupid, then I wouldn't have been able to connect with the person who did think it was cool.
Sure. And so that was it for me. It actually formed a relationship with the higher ups that other analysts did not have at my level. Like, he would hang in the kitchen and be interested in my weekend and the paint party that I went to and all of that. And he would like chuckle to himself and shake his head and laugh and, oh man, and then he'd tell me about his Virginia Tech party that he went to when he was there and what they did, and it was not a conversation that he would have had with other people at the office. Mm-hmm. So I don't mean to paint this as all good, because something else happened, which is made it very clear that I didn't belong there to everybody. And it put pressure on me from them and from myself to leave. Because I ultimately, though I did have this particular connection on this one thing, I really didn't connect with most of the people in the office on the things that they found valuable. And it made it strikingly clear that I needed to leave to go be with other people. And when I did speak to the president, and it was a great conversation, they wound up keeping me, he was very, very helpful. He got it. Yeah. And it didn't come as a shock, and it was time for me to leave, and it just felt right. So all of this to say, wear it on your sleeve.
Yep.
Doesn't mean that everybody has to like you. Doesn't mean that you have to cut them all out.
You just connect with the people you actually connect with when you're being your real self.
And if this makes it so that work becomes more obviously difficult for you to participate in, that's a good thing.
Because you can find a place with a culture where what you like is awesome.
Yes, exactly. And maybe that's, for instance, it's not like every corporate culture is like Google's got probably more Dungeons and Dragons masters than any company out there. There's cool companies that have that nerdy streak, if you will, but without being total dweebs, right? I'm sure there's other army infantry guys who do D&D in some of these tech companies.
No matter what your job is, like let's say that you're a marketer, you can also go market for something that you like a certain video game that's an RPG game, or Dungeons and Dragons itself. You can go find an office where the core thing that holds everyone together is a love of this magic world that you also love. Mm-hmm. So hypothetically, you're the head of marketing for a car company and you don't care about cars. You can go get a job somewhere else where people will like the things you like.
Larian Studios, baby.
Larian Studios, yeah.
They're awesome. So let's try to. We've said a lot. I want to try to unpack it into just a handful of recap things. First off,
You're perfectly mature, no matter what your interests
you're
are.
A-okay. Second off, the resentment that you feel is primarily being generated from the pressure that you put on yourself to be like those people, not because they are different than you. So allow yourself to explore that and to take some of that away.
Yeah, in the same way it's cool that you like Dungeons and Dragons, it's cool that they like housing
The
markets.
stock market, whatever they like.
It's all the same.
Third, wear it on your sleeve, but don't make it cut any connections off. You know, it's not like if you don't like Dungeons and Dragons, you're done for me, but allow people to know. And maybe there's another person in the office that has the same thing. When they ask you about your weekend, tell them, hey, you guys probably think it's lame, but I had this Dungeons and Dragons party.
And it was awesome.
It was awesome.
That's the thing. Your delivery, by the way, is going to carry this. If
Yeah.
you're happy and excited, it's going to be fine. If you act like it's something to be ashamed of, they'll just assume it's something to be ashamed of.
And then lastly, depending on how all of that goes and how your environment shifts or doesn't shift, consider changing your environment to surround yourself with more people that bring out that zest for life in you and not that frustration with the adult world. I think that's a good recap.
Great answer. I loved it.